How to start making videos for the internet. First, decide if you want to make short videos or long videos. Short videos are 1 to 60 seconds, long videos are usually 2 minutes up to 2 hours. But I would aim for 5 minutes up to 2 hours because, well, let's face it, you have to make a differentiation. First, if you want to go for short form, then I would recommend using TikTok as the native platform, and you create these videos on TikTok for TikTok, and then you download these videos and copy them to Facebook Reels, to Instagram Reels, and to YouTube Shorts. Therefore, you now have 4 platforms you can distribute. You could additionally also distribute to Thriller, which allows you to also copy-paste the same content, but only on mobile. It's the same as on TikTok. I mean, on TikTok you can also upload via the web right now. Second, if you want to decide to make long-form videos, so 5 minutes to maybe 2 hours, then I would recommend using YouTube as a native platform because it's still kind of the best platform for long-form content. But what you also can do is, if you create these, you already have to store them on your hard drive. And if you store them on your hard drive, basically you can also upload them to the copy platforms. Meaning you again have one native platform being YouTube itself, where you post actually the videos themselves, and then you have like the original release date. Obviously you should also have like a little bit of a posting schedule. So what I would recommend for the short videos is just posting daily whenever you can post daily, because everything else just is too complicated in terms of scheduling. And also on TikTok you cannot schedule really, only for the next 2 weeks. And also on Facebook and Instagram you can theoretically schedule, but it doesn't really work out like you think it would. Therefore, I just wouldn't schedule and just post daily whenever you can post daily, but not more than once a day, because then you eventually will run out of videos, because otherwise you have to produce all these videos every single day. Second, if you go again for the long form content, then 5 to 2 hours, 5 minutes to 2 hours, then what I would recommend is posting them to YouTube. I think weekly would be a good... I mean, it depends on how many videos you want to make. So first, I would just start making any videos. So think of ideas you want, or think of things you figured out. Like this can be within the last 2 days. What was interesting? And then the next thing, so this is basically the third thing after you decided either for short form or for long form content. Obviously, you can also do both. I would recommend using short form. Why? Because it's way easier. You only have to speak for like 10 seconds or 60 seconds, and therefore you can get started way easier. You can still do the long form content in, I don't know how many days, how many weeks, but the thing is, you have to actually train making videos, and by making videos, you actually train the skill itself, and not like, oh yeah, I have to have this distribution tool and I actually have to come up with a schedule. I mean, these are things that are also connected, but the main thing is that you are standing in front of a camera and actually are speaking to the camera and maybe posting these videos and actually seeing if someone is interested in the style you do, in the ideas you do, in the topics you cover. So next, we already covered the short form content and the platforms, now the long form content and the platforms. We already discussed that you should post natively to YouTube, and now there's the thing with long-term content, because there are 2 additional platforms I would recommend posting to, because these are pretty much identical. Just as with Reels or Shorts, you have the original platform, the native platform, and you post to the copy platforms. TikTok is the native platform for Shorts, and Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels, and also YouTube Shorts are the 3 copy platforms. When it comes to long-term content, YouTube is the native platform, and Facebook Watch and IGTV are the copy platforms. Therefore, you just copy-paste them. As of right now, you cannot really post to IGTV and also to Facebook Watch, even though they are connected, because they're obviously owned by the same company at the same time, which is kind of a bummer. And probably Facebook will merge these 2 platforms or keep them separate as separate portals to the same thing in the future. This is the same with Reels. Facebook Reels and Instagram Reels are basically pretty similar, but you cannot post to these platforms as of right now at the same time, which is kind of a bummer. But so the next thing is the actual topics. First, I would recommend just making one channel and seeing it as the experimental channel where you just post random stuff. In the beginning, it doesn't matter that you have like different topics you cover. Just do a video on tech if you are interested into tech. Just do a video on stereo or hi-fi or music or I don't know, or on studying or on politics. It doesn't really matter because in the beginning, the thing that matters the most is actually just getting to record videos and actually trying all these different things. At the beginning, it's just taking you and your video skills and your talking skills and just throwing them against the wall and just seeing what sticks. Eventually, what I realized is, so in the beginning I was like, yeah, this channel has to be this. So let's talk about channels because I just mentioned them. What are channels? So you are basically a person and the person has thoughts and the thoughts already are basically the things that kind of determine what you do in life. So the thing is, what if now you just took these thoughts and whenever the thought actually had hit a certain threshold where you thought like, oh yeah, this is interesting, I actually could share it. But it's not like, you shouldn't think of it as I share it. It's something that's interesting enough to write a book about it or something interesting enough to share it to the world. But what if you just told the same thing to the camera, the same thing you would tell your friend the other day, or you told your friend actually the other day. Just take the same things because these things are already you and these things are already the things you are interested in. Therefore, just record these things like, okay, this morning I did a run and it was kind of pretty exciting. And what I did different this morning was that I actually tried to run a little bit faster. Why? Because I read this book and this book is blah, 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 blah. And then it goes on. So this is basically what you would tell a friend and why not just treat the camera as a friend, because everybody who watches wants also to be treated as a friend because basically people are watching this stuff and obviously the camera is only the tool that allows you to speak to all these people, but obviously multiple people at the same time. So therefore, first create like one channel and this one channel can be present on TikTok, on Instagram, but first I would recommend just creating the channel on TikTok for the short term and on YouTube for the long term. But obviously YouTube is something, here's the problem, if you want to go hardcore YouTube in the beginning. Everything you record, every single piece of content is one piece of content, and every one piece of content is just one piece of content. And one piece of content is basically a lottery ticket because it depends on the algorithms, it depends on the time of day, it depends on how you look, it depends on what you say, it depends on how you say it, whether the video does well or does not well. But there are also lots of things you cannot control. And therefore, everything you record, every piece of content is a lottery ticket. And therefore, if you make these lottery tickets in the beginning very long, then you invest far more time in these lottery tickets, and since everything is kind of the same, so I mean, obviously a video on YouTube that is like 20 minutes and has 20 views, and compared to a 1-minute video on TikTok has obviously with the same kind of impressions, so with the same number of impressions 20 times, so YouTube 20 times the watch time, but that's something you shouldn't think about in the beginning. In the beginning I would think about just maximizing impressions and also maximizing impressions, and that's pretty much it, because watch time and these things are things you can figure out in the future once you posted the first 20, 25, 50, 100 videos. So think of it like this. Everything is a lottery ticket, whether it's a short or a long form video. Therefore, creating short form video is basically creating more lottery tickets. And the more lottery tickets you create, the more known you will get, because the chances are, this is just statistics. I mean, every single piece of content has a certain chance of hitting or actually being shown to a few people, and therefore the more videos you create, the bigger the chances. Obviously, there are things like getting shadow banned on TikTok or on YouTube. This means basically that the algorithm decides, oh, well, we showed this to a few people and nobody watched it, and therefore we just don't show it to people anymore. I mean, this can happen, and this happened to a few of my accounts, but obviously, I mean, if you just there are two things you can do now. Either you delete all the channels and you do redesign everything, which kind of takes like hours and hours and hours, or you just continue making videos and eventually the shadow ban will go away. So that's basically how it works, I guess. So now, here's the next thing. The next thing is this. Once you created this channel, obviously we talked about how to get started. This is basically now into the future, if you already created a few videos. We talked about the lottery tickets, which are basically every single piece of content is a lottery ticket. Therefore, create as many pieces of content as possible, and in the beginning at least, just try to favor the short form content, because that's basically giving you more value and actually giving you more feedback, because people on TikTok, for example, are also way more interactive than on YouTube. They just, because everybody on TikTok can kind of create, but on YouTube it's this kind of, yeah, here are the users and here are the creators. On TikTok, everybody can like upload a few things, and it's very easy because there are all these filters, and then I just take a snapshot or take a short video of my dog and I just upload it. Therefore, I'm also a creator, and therefore the differentiation between the creator and the user is much smaller. Therefore, the hurdle to just message a creator or to just comment, I think, is much lower. At least this happened to me, and I get a lot more comments on TikTok at least. So now, here is the third thing. Obviously, once you are in the future where you already posted a few things, the thing is this. Not everybody who watches videos about cats or your cat is also interested about your thoughts about Elon Musk. Therefore, what I would recommend, and this is also the thing I have been kind of planning to do and also am implementing right now, is this. Just think of all the interests you have, and then in the beginning, I would just create one channel with all the interests. Therefore, you have like, if you have 10 videos, then it doesn't matter then that these 10 videos are like off topic, kind of. But if you then create like 100 videos or 200 videos or 1000 videos, then obviously what you can do is, because you don't need as many videos for every single channel, because I mean you can post daily, but if you produce like 5 short videos daily, then obviously you could also post these 5 short videos daily. But the thing is, you don't want to talk for the rest of your life about this certain niche topic. Therefore, what I would recommend is this. Divide your life into the interests you already have. For me, this is kind of, I have like these categorizations for my life already, which are health, which are management, which I just call self-organization and calendar planning, and also trying to think about how to be more efficient, how to sleep well, and stuff like this, on basically self-management. So health, self-management, we have work, we have finances, we have, what else do we have? We have travel, which is kind of a subcategory of self-management. It depends on how you view it. I think it just deserves its own category as of now, and I haven't changed it. And what else do I have? Yeah, there's also social. Social is also a big thing. So you have these kind of 5 to 10 categories of your life, and now you can obviously subdivide them further. For example, you can make a finance channel. I mean, this is not subdividing, but it's just taking one of these categories and just talking about the things you already, I mean, you have to think about these things. Therefore, it's pretty obvious that you just then also talk about the things you already figured out. So for example, if you figured out how to set up a health insurance, maybe you just, hit a few points or made a few, not explorations, but but you just found out a few things that may be helpful for like 5 persons. Because if you figured out health insurance, you might also tell your friend about it. And it's, oh, have you heard about this thing? And you basically have to have health insurance, because otherwise if you get sick, then, yeah, well, and what's the best health insurance company? Yeah, it's this one, because I actually did the research and I checked it online, and these are things that are interesting to people. And if they are not, then you will know. But in the beginning, I just wouldn't see the impressions as like the thing that determines whether this is something for you or not, because in the beginning, you would not get as many impressions, because let's face it, I mean, if you want to become a doctor, then it takes like 15 years of practice and studying. And if you want to create videos and you create one video, and after the first video you're like, yeah, that's not for me, I can't even talk in front of the camera, then that's obviously kind of, well, you see the difference? I mean, you obviously have to practice speaking. You obviously have to practice maybe speaking in English if English is not your native language. You obviously have to practice all these things, and also just figuring stuff out, making experiences along the way, and it's just part of investing time. You invest time in it, then you think about it, and then you're like, yeah, I could do this better. And this is something that only happens over time if you invest the time in the first place. So now, What I would recommend is the big third step. So we covered in the first step. Again, short-term or long-term content. I obviously would go for the short-term content, and the long-term content can wait till when you are ready. For example, I just started with TikTok like a year ago, pretty much. Not a year ago, like a few months ago. I started just posting random stuff on TikTok, and I wanted to be like somebody who records YouTube videos for a very long time, but I just didn't. Why? Because the YouTube video is a very big thing, and I obviously had to do these videos like Sam Colder style, where you record hundreds of hours of footage, and you spend like thousands on traveling expenses, and then you create these videos with the friends you obviously have that look very nice, and you also post it to YouTube, and these are projects that take hours and hours and hours. Sam Colder, for example, probably edited these videos at least for, I would say, 20 to 250 hours, one of these videos. And not even talking about shooting the footage, not even talking about planning all the travels, not even talking about, obviously, it seems like people like Sam Colder just, and I just randomly recorded it. But these people, they have like thousands of dollars invested in gear, and then they take it with them, with their backpack, to the mountain and to the waterfall, and then it's not waterproof. And these are all things that happen. And therefore, here is the fourth final step. Just record yourself talking without anything else. Don't add like fancy animations and fancy titles. Why? Because this is training the wrong skill. The one skill you need to train is basically the skill you need as a human, basically you talking to people or also listening to people. But since this is kind of a one-way conversation, if you post stuff to the internet, the talking obviously is kind of more important. Therefore, what I would recommend, and this is also what I did, with very few exceptions, I had like titles on the videos for like 10 videos in the beginning, and then I just didn't do it anymore. Why? Because it's training the right skill. If you just set a camera up and the microphone, and I recorded almost all of these videos exclusively on my phone, so basically waited until technology was right, and then I just used it. Before, it was very complicated with microphones and stuff. I tried for years to make things like proper audio work, but I just couldn't hit it. So therefore, technology now is right. You can't just take your phone and you either use the internal mic or you set up something like the Zoom H6, which is an external mic, which requires a little bit of knowledge about microphones and also about connecting these to your phone. And this is something I kind of figured out, that you can actually connect these things. But, well, in the beginning, I would just take your phone and that's enough. If you have like a proper new phone, if you really want to invest something, then just take your old phone, sell it and invest into a new phone, which has a proper audio and also a proper video camera. So, but let's talk again about talking, about just recording yourself talking. That's the most important thing. The thing you need is basically public speaking, but you don't even have to speak publicly because you are in your room alone, there's nobody here, and you're just talking to a camera. Obviously, if I now talk to you, it seems as if we are talking, but as a matter of fact, I am here alone in my room and I'm talking to a camera. That's it. That's the thing you are doing. And I mean, you obviously have to also kind of get into talking just without anybody. I mean, it's kind of a very weird experience because you're basically talking to yourself and sometimes even looking at yourself, depending on if you already mastered the science or the art of looking into the camera, whether or not looking onto your picture. But since it's kind of lit, I mean, I still do it. So therefore, just record yourself talking. And if that's not interesting enough, then it will be in the future. If you just keep on talking to the camera, you just will get better if you talk. I mean, it's pretty obvious. If you run, you will get better over time, unless you have like injuries and stuff like this. But obviously this can also happen with YouTube. I mean, or recording videos. You can't just, you can't just hit a point where you just don't want to do it anymore. But think about it as this. As Andrew Huberman, very famous, not very famous, but a podcast host who does a quite good podcast on how to basically optimize your life. It's called the Huberman Lab, and what he talks about is this. The harder something feels, the more actually you grow. Because the harder it feels, the more you mark your brain for change. And therefore, if something feels hard, and also if recording YouTube videos feels hard. For example, I hit days where I recorded like 10 hours straight and my voice was sore and I was like just standing all day long and I didn't even sit down and I just recorded and recorded and recorded. When I recorded the first videos just with voiceover and screen recording, I just recorded basically for days and hours, and I didn't really like the experience, to be honest, but I just kept doing it because I knew eventually if I recorded these things, I eventually would have things that are recorded. Also, when I started to record music, I just forced myself to actually record the music, and I thought it was like total crap and nobody would ever care. But then it turns out, like after the one or other hour of recording music, you are like, yeah, this actually sounds nice. And then you are recording 9 videos that are totally crap again, and then you are like, oh, that one was nice. But if you then listen to it again and again, you are like, yeah, well, it doesn't sound so nice anymore. Therefore, the fifth and final tip, don't actually just pull up your videos and watch them. Why? Because this keeps you in the same topics again and again. Because if you think about these things all day long, I mean, obviously, you would normally think about like random things. And then you would turn these random things into videos. For example, you would go to the grocery store or like at Aldi and you're like, oh yeah, I didn't try this one and let's just make a video about it, because obviously that's the one thing you are doing if you are at Aldi. You make a video about this one item of food you just discovered. And then, what was the fifth and final tip? Good question. I just stop a minute. Yeah, I know it again. It's not to watch your stuff. I mean, obviously, for quality control reasons, you want to watch your stuff. Like, if the audio is right, if the beginning of the video is like 10 seconds of you staring into the camera and actually waiting for the camera to actually start recording, which is something that sometimes happens with some old phones. But the thing is, if you watch too much of your own stuff, then you think of you as this creator, and then you just listen to the same things you already basically thought the day before, and therefore you get kind of caught into this loop, and then you create the same content all day long, and therefore it also becomes boring quite easily. If you instead try to not watch your content and also try to not watch any other people's content, because that's kind of the sixth tip, just don't try to watch YouTube, don't try to watch TV, don't try to do anything of these. Obviously, you can get ideas out of it, but if you watch like somebody like MKBHD and then you watch your videos back to back, I mean, obviously there is kind of quality difference, I guess, in terms of production quality, but also obviously in terms of speaking quality. And therefore, I mean, there obviously is a difference, and this can lead far easier to thoughts like, oh yeah, well, I'm not made to do this. Therefore, 6 tips for actually starting producing video content in, as of recording this, 2021. And if you are watching this later, maybe Facebook and Instagram will have already merged and you can post now reels to both platforms. I hope I helped you, and I just randomly recorded this because actually this should be a TikTok, but it turns out it was like 23 minutes of me talking about this stuff.